I think once somebody comes to Christ and they start to read the Bible, there's one truth that keeps coming out, and that is that we are not to be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. I found that after I came to trust Christ as Savior and Lord as a student in university, the pressures of the world still tried to conform me to my old ways of doing things and to compromise with the world around. Probably the person who was the greatest testimony to me here is a young lady by the name of Jana. She attended Fresno State University in my country. It's in the state of California. She was a psychology major, and one of her classes, it was on sexuality. And the professor said they are going to be watching triple X-rated pornographic movies, and said that the entire class had to watch the movies. It was to desensitize them, he said, to sexual issues. Well, Jana had committed her life to Jesus Christ, and she knew the Bible said, flee sexual immorality. Do not become involved in sexual sin. That is, sex outside of a loving commitment of marriage in the way that God created it. And she knew that her eyes were avenues to her soul. They weren't trash cans. And she just, as a believer, could not watch those movies. So she went to the professor in his office and said, I am a Christian. My life and my body and my mind is committed to Christ. Is there any way I can avoid watching these movies? He said, no. If you do not watch them, you will be deducted 1 full grade. She said, then you will have to deduct me 1 full grade. He thought about that for a moment. Finally, he said to Jana, tell you what, if you write a 5-page paper defending why, as a Christian, you do not want to watch this pornographic material, and if I accept your paper, then I will excuse you and you will not be deducted a grade. Well, that night at midnight, this young lady somehow got a hold of my phone and she calls me. She said, Josh, help me. So for about an hour and a half over the phone, we discussed God's view of sexuality, what pornography does to the mind and everything else, and relationships and marriage. Then the next day she handed the paper in, or 2 days later. I was so nervous I could hardly wait for her to call. She went in, handed the paper in. The next class day, the professor called her to the front of the class, asked her to read her paper to the whole class. She was so nervous. She started to read. She read the entire paper. And then he said to her, I accept your reasons and your paper, and you can be excused and you will not be deducted a grade. And then he said to the whole class, any of you here, for these same reasons that do not want to watch these pornographic films, then you will be excused and you will not be deducted. About a third of the class got excused from watching the pornographic films because of one young lady who said, I am going to serve Christ. I'm not going to be conformed to the world around me. I'm not going to give in to watching these pornographic films. And as a result, she became a testimony not only to believers, but to unbelievers.